In relationships that matter, intimacy is what we all want. Watch this video for 4 wonderful ways to build it. Coach Drew here, registered psychotherapist. If you want to learn, heal, and grow in your relationships, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video every Thursday. If you want more depth and satisfaction in your relationships, but are struggling to cultivate real intimacy, by the end of this video, you'll have 4 ways to get the love you want. I rely on these ways, and the people I work with, they're experiencing greater fulfillment because of these 4 things. Now it's your turn. But first, what is intimacy? I asked some people, and here's what they had to say.
Trust.
Honesty.
Communication. Safe space.
Intimacy is all about being seen, known, accepted, and valued in a safe environment. We can be intimate with our brothers, our sisters, our friends. If you agree with this definition, type in the comments below, I agree. So, how do we build it? Well, number 1, give it. We get intimacy by giving intimacy. It's important to embrace the idea that first we are givers. Givers of affirmation, of acceptance, the time to actually see someone, acknowledge them, and to express value for their person. That's what cultivates intimacy. Dr. Gary Chapman, in his book called The 5 Love Languages, he sets an amazing platform, a launching pad, if you will, for how we give and receive love in different ways. So if you haven't read it, check it out. Before our discussion today, our focus on giving. When we position ourselves as givers first, we avoid the posture of sitting back and waiting for people to give us what we want. Do we have desires? Do we have needs for that kind of give and take? Of course we do. Often we want to receive what it is that we give. Does that make focusing on giving first manipulative and insincere? No, I don't think it does. In fact, because we are relational beings, we're designed for that give and take, for mutuality, reciprocity. Now, if you find yourself struggling and wrestling with the idea of being okay with being a giver first, leave me a comment or a question and we can unpack it. Number 2, use technology. Why would we use technology? To be consistent. If you're not giving intimacy every day, you're missing opportunities to build the very thing that you want. It's important to be intentional and to find ways to remember, to invest, to be consistent. Anything that's alive needs regular cultivation to grow. Our relationships are alive. Obviously, the people we're in relationship with, they're alive too. We grow with affirmation. I use alarms every day to remind me about the things as well as the people that matter to me. Comment below if you think using technology in this way is a good idea. Number 3, reaffirm your worth. What does self-worth have to do with intimacy? Everything. If you're insecure and you don't think much of yourself, it makes it hard to believe that someone else actually values you and will want you around when you reveal aspects of your life, of yourself that are not so great. On the other hand, when you realize that you are wonderful and you have so much to bring to this relationship, it makes it easier to acknowledge your flaws. Flaws. We all have them. Yet we tend not to acknowledge them, and when we do, we play them down. But that's the worst thing that we could do for our intimacy. Intimacy requires honesty, transparency, vulnerability, which leads us to the 4th and final thing we'll talk about today, valuing vulnerability. As I mentioned before, insecurity can stop us from sharing aspects of our lives. These things are a part of us, and when we don't share them, we're not sharing ourselves entirely. which means we're not being vulnerable. And you can't have intimacy without vulnerability. I talk about this cycle in The Art of a Genuine Apology. Vulnerability leads to deeper intimacy, and deeper intimacy leads to greater vulnerability. You cannot have one without the other. On some level, we all know this, but do we really value it? Valuing vulnerability will impact every meaningful relationship you ever have. Sadly, there have been many times when parents come to me after their teen has attempted suicide and they say, "How did I miss the signs?" You know, I sometimes feel a little bit afraid that that same thing could happen to me when my 5-year-old daughter comes to me and says, "Daddy, I don't want to tell you." If those parents could go back, I'm sure they would model that transparency and that vulnerability. When we do that, we demonstrate to people that we're not perfect and we're okay with that. So you don't have to be perfect either. That's the beauty of intimacy. There's acceptance, even when there are flaws. So hopefully they can acknowledge things that they're not proud of in our presence. Now, who likes acknowledging when they're wrong? Nobody. But that doesn't mean that we can't value it. Now, if you're curious about how to go about these conversations, check out my one-page guide. It's called How to Have Conversations You Don't Want to Have. I've included the link below. Now, I know that insecurity in oneself is not the only reason to avoid being vulnerable. Many things can cause one to feel insecure and emotionally unsafe in their relationships. So how does one make their relationship safe? That's what we'll get into in the next video. If you believe this video added value to your life, to your day, to your relationships, please let me know by liking this video. Subscribe and share it with anyone and everyone who matters to you. Comment below and please leave me a question, because you know I love questions. Until then, continue to learn, heal, and grow. See you soon.